Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Plaistow Board Budget Committee meeting, reorganization meeting, April 13th, 2021. I call this meeting to order at 6:32. Charlene, would you please call the roll?
You bet. Doug Thompson.
Here.
Brian Stack.
Here.
Robert Zukas.
Here.
Christina Cruz.
Here.
Peter Bracci.
Here.
Bob Hamilton.
Here.
Greg Talon.
Here.
Darrell Britton.
Here.
Mark Pearson.
Mark's on mute, but he is.
Yeah, I know. I heard him earlier. Greg's not here.
No.
Greg Colby's not, just Mark?
He's watching the.
He's watching. Okay. And me.
Okay. Please raise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice. I'd like to introduce our new members this evening. We have Brian Stack. Brian is the principal of Sanborn Regional High School and certainly deals with budgets a lot larger than our $10 million budget. Doug. Hello, Doug.
Hey, guys.
Doug is the head of his own CPA firm, I believe.
Yes.
And his skills and experience will certainly benefit our budget committee this year and hopefully the next few years. Christina Cruz. Welcome, Christina. Christina has been our town recreation director, so she knows about our town budget from the inside. We know it from the outside, she knows it from the inside. I'd like to welcome back Peter Bracci. Peter has served as on the Board of Selectmen for 3 years and then joined us on the Budget Committee 2 years ago. So he's got 2 years' experience with us. Bob Zukas, welcome back. Bob has served 1 year on the Budget Committee. Sadly, I'm now the senior member of the Budget Committee. I've only had 5 years' experience, but one of those years, 2 years ago, was as a chair. Greg Talon, he is currently going to be our selectman representative this year, and he's had 1 year experience on the Budget Committee, 2 years' experience on the Board of Selectmen, and is the chair of the Board of Selectmen this year as well. We've lost some experience on the Budget Committee. Dennis Hefferman, we're going to miss him because he was here for 8 years. That's a lot of experience. Lori Millette and Sam Casifo, they both did not run for re-election. They had served 2 terms or 6 years on the Budget Committee. Maxanne Dobson, she resigned after deliberative, after 2 years of being our chair. And Darrell Britton, he ran for Board of Selectmen, got elected, and he's here as our alternate this year. I'd like to mention that Darrell has also had been on the Board of Selectmen back in the 90s, I believe.
80s and 90s.
Yeah, so he's familiar with the Budget Committee and a lot of the other boards that he was involved with. I'd just like to mention one other thing before we get into reorganization. For the new people, the new members, I've asked that you be supplied with the white binders for filing your information, and also a hard copy of this year's budget so that you can kind of get familiar with the layout of the budget, the line items, and that sort of thing. I know that was helpful for me 5 years ago when I first joined the committee. So That leaves us to budget-related public comment, if anybody has any. We have that every beginning of every meeting, just in case anybody in the public would like to come in and make a comment about our budget. If not, then we get on to reorganization, and the first thing on the agenda is to select a chair. So I'd like to ask right now for a nomination for chair. Yes, Greg?
I'd make a nomination for Doug Thompson for chair.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a nomination of Doug and a second. Now, I'm not sure whether we should ask for other nominations or just go ahead and vote on that. What is the wishes? Yes,
I'll nominate Bob Zukas as chairman of the Budget Committee.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it. Oh, I can't, because I'm an alternate, I'm
I'll
sorry.
second it, just because I think I'd love to hear more from either of the folks.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, we have 2 nominations for chair. Now, how would you like to proceed?
Want to take a vote?
You have to do a roll call
A roll call vote?
because Doug is online.
Okay, correct, we need a roll call vote. Is there comments from either of the nominees or both? Would you like to speak?
No.
Yeah,
I nominated Bob because he's got experience on the Budget Committee from last year. I thought he did a great job. Nothing against Doug. I don't personally know Doug. But seeing that Bob does have some follow-through from last year, that's why I put him up for chair.
okay.
Sure.
I'm going to ask Bob, you're okay with the nomination?
I am.
Okay. Doug, you're okay with the nomination?
Yeah, I won't oppose it.
You're not opposing it? Oh, is that what you said? You are or you're not?
I am not, I will not oppose it if the position is needed.
Okay, terrific. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Any other comments?
Well, I guess I would just ask, why did you nominate Doug, since I don't know.
So 2 reasons. One, Doug has a very strong financial background. He does it for a living. He's seen many businesses and how they put their budgets together. And secondly, he's new, so we have a kind of a fresh outlook, and we can basically build a new budget committee from a perspective of a new volunteer.
Okay, I'd just like to mention one other thing. This is the first time that I've been on the Budget Committee that we've had more than one nomination for chair, so I'm not sure how to proceed. Do we?
You just ask
Just-
people who they want to vote for.
I'd like to
It's a
say
roll call.
something. if I may.
Okay, so we go around the table and,
Yep.
Well, Bob would like to speak.
yes, Bob?
Okay. The reason I feel that I would do well in the position is good working relationship with town members, the boards. I've very good working relationship with Mark. Matter of fact, it's no mystery, I had a meeting with him today to discuss what was going to be involved, what direction and what some of the hurdles were that needed to be overcome to move this board on in a proper direction, what we need to make this board successful, and asked if it was going to be in the purview of, the town to make this board successful. And had a very good conversation, got a lot of information that cleared up a lot of misunderstandings and misinformation that was previously made. And I feel confident that I can get us going in the direction that needs to be done and still accomplish what the board needs to do.
Very good, thank you. So roll call vote, please.
So I'm going to call your name and you're going to tell me who you're voting for? We'll do it that way? Yes?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
We
Okay,
got to vote for one person, for Doug. He was nominated first, so should we
Yeah.
vote for Doug? Vote for Doug first and then vote for Bob.
That's it, yeah, I think so, Peter.
Okay,
You need to
Okay.
do a roll, you need to do a roll call
yes,
anyway.
we're going to do a roll call for Doug first.
Yep.
All set?
okay, so voting for Doug Thompson? Doug Thompson?
I pass.
Brian Stack?
Oh, you can pass?
Well, he can abstain because it's him.
Yeah, no, you're right, you can abstain. I will vote for Doug Thompson.
Robert Zukas?
Abstain.
Christine Cruz?
Doug Thompson?
Peter Bracci?
Bob Zukas? Oh, I mean, no.
No, yeah.
No, my vote is no.
Got it. That's a no, not an A. Okay, Bob Hamilton?
I abstain.
Greg Talon?
Yes, Doug.
Okay, now for Bob Zukas? Doug Thompson?
Yes.
Brian Stack?
I guess no.
Bob Zukas?
Abstain.
Christine Cruz?
No.
Peter Bracci?
Yes.
Bob Hamilton?
Yes.
Greg Talon?
Abstain.
Okay, that's 1, 2,
Tied.
3 for Doug. And okay, by my vote, by my count of this, and I hope I heard it correctly, it's a tie.
Right.
So,
So 3 and 3.
what do we do now?
Well, I voted for Bob, so if that means anything.
Did Doug just say he voted for Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, he was one of the three.
So I'm going to break the deadlock here, and I'm going to change my vote for Bob.
Okay,
Okay,
So let's retally those votes.
4-2.
4-2?
4 to 2, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
All righty then. So that's chair.
come on up.
You're the chair now.
Get to run it now.
Big chair.
You're gonna get off easy?
I guess I should bring my name tag too.
We got to know who you are, where you go.
I know.
Take your name tag, Bob.
Stay close, so get you through.
All right, well, that was pretty darn quick. Okay. And I guess the next order of business would be to select a vice chair. Do we have any nominations? I guess.
I would like to nominate Doug Thompson for vice chair.
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, let's take a vote. Is there anybody else that was interested? All right, then, Charlene, can we do a vote?
You got it. Doug Thompson,
Yes.
Brian Stack,
Yes.
Robert Zukas,
Yes.
Christina Cruz,
Yes.
Peter Bracci,
Yes.
Bob Hamilton,
Yes.
Greg Talon.
Yes.
That was good. 1, 2, 3,
was easy.
4, 5, 6, 7. Unanimous.
All right. Now we have committee assignments. I am not aware of the committees that we're,
Okay. Let me step in here because I'm familiar with the committees. We have 2 committees for assigning budget committee members to. One is the CIP committee, and the other is the town report committee. The CIP committee is basically, meets 2 to 3 times a year. So it's not a big commitment here, but it's an important committee, and it's great for new people. Bob was on it last year, I was, and we had Maxine as our alternate. It's, really the money is talked about to spend on big projects such as replacement of vehicles and things of that nature. So it's a real nuts and bolts committee that you'll learn a lot. So I recommend that any new member that is not familiar with a lot of these investments that the town has to make ongoing, that you volunteer for this, you'll learn a lot. We need 2 regular committee members. There's also 2 from the Budget Committee, 2 from the Board of Selectmen as well, and 2 from the Planning Board. So it's a 6-member committee. You're all voting members. And the other interesting thing about this committee is that you get to, if you're an alternate, you get to participate. You won't vote unless one of the other members is absent, but you can sit in and participate and ask questions, and you get all the information as well. So even being an alternate is a good thing. And it's only 3 tops, 3 meetings a year. The Town Report Committee is more towards the end of the year. I haven't been on that committee, but we have 1 representative on that committee that puts together the town report, so I'm sure it's a real interesting committee. So we need a representative from the Budget Committee and an alternate for that.
I'll volunteer.
For which one?
I'm sorry, the capital improvement.
Okay,
And this is how we're going to do it. Anybody that wants to volunteer.
I'll do the town report.
Town report?
I can do either one, wherever you think there's more of a need, I'm indifferent.
Well, if you do the CIP, then you're a voting member.
Okay, that's fine, I can do
Okay.
that.
thank
So
you.
now we would need alternates for both the CIP and the Town Report Committee. Alternates. And if we don't have any right now, remember, we're going to have 3 more members on the
I'll
board.
volunteer
so-
for alternate to the town report as it was.
Okay.
For which one?
Get that, Phil.
Town report.
I'm going to save the, I think we should save the CIP alternate for one of the newer members
Yep.
that we assign. Okay, we're done.
All right, filling the vacancies. It looks like we have 4 empty spots. Pretty sure that that's
3
where,
spots.
3?
3, yep.
All right, do we have someone that's here tonight that is interested in being a part of the Budget Committee process? 1, 2, 3, 4.
A few.
Okay, 4. Okay, that's a good turnout. All right, let's,
May I just?
yes.
We do have a policy, and everybody is aware of it, that is here tonight that knows that we have to promote it, we have to advertise it on the town website. That was something that we developed back in 2017, so that we'd be fair to everybody in town, that you didn't need to know a Board of Selectmen or a Budget Committee member to be aware of an opening, that we open it up to any resident in town that's
And
that
that
would
was
be
posted.
interested.
And that was
So-
posted.
I'm sorry,
Has that been posted?
it has not been posted.
Okay.
It's a directive of
Mr. Chair?
us to do it. Now, I'd just like to mention one other thing.
Okay.
The last 2 years, we had vacancies, 1 vacancy, and we didn't fill it. That's an option that the Budget Committee has, and it's in our policy. And the reason why we didn't fill it was because it would have meant an even number, 10. And so when it gets to voting on certain things, you may end up with a deadlock. So by not filling the vacancy the last 2 years, we were able to avoid deadlocks, like we just had with the,
Right, but we also voted this year to increase the,
right, but that won't go into effect until next year. until the next election. But what I'm recommending this year is that we fill the vacancies, not worry about that deadlock thing. And just in case we lose somebody else, we don't have to then scramble it towards the end.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Would it be
Greg.
appropriate to minimally to allow these volunteers to introduce themselves and just
That's what I
maybe
was,
very summarize why they would like to join the
Absolutely.
Budget Committee?
They took the time to come here, they should be able to, yes.
all right. Ned,
Oh,
yes,
how many vacancies did you say we had?
we had three.
Right.
Yep.
I was under the impression that the fourth one, that the board was increased, but that is not until next year.
Right.
So I
We
read
have to get to the meeting, voting next year before it takes effect.
Correct. Yep.
That's right. All right.
Need to use the mic?
Yeah, we're going to need to use the microphone for, John, would you like to come up first? Please state your name and just, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in, what you feel you could bring to the Budget Committee would be good.
How much time am I allowed?
Yeah, let's try to keep, yeah.
Coming in 3 minutes.
The first office I held in the town was on the Budget Committee, and that was in 1990. So since then, I've been on the Budget Committee directly for 10 years, and for 17 years, I was on the Board of Selectmen and being a representative to the Budget Committee. So one way to look at it is I've got, whatever that is, 27 years' experience on the Budget Committee. I've served on some of the other committees that you were talking about, the CIP. I'd be very interested in being involved in that. I think that's something that we should do better. And I think we can, not that anything's been wrong, maybe we're not giving it as much emphasis as we could. So I'd like to be involved for that reason. I'd also like to be involved because I want to be involved. As you can see, I've done this for quite a few years. I did stop 3 or 4 years ago, took a time out, and I'm back. What I could bring to the Budget Committee is a lot of experience and a lot of historical information. I know that all of us on the Budget Committee sometimes feel we don't get enough information or get it quickly or something like that. So, and there are sometimes that there's something in the history that I can supply. I've lived in Plaistow since 1974. I'm not sure what else there is.
That's good. That gives us a good,
My wife's on the school district budget committee, and my daughter works for the school district as the lead nurse and school nurse for Pollard School.
all right.
Okay?
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Mr. Kiska.
I think just like John, I'll try to keep it brief. I think everyone here already knows who I am, so I'm not a stranger. Yes, I spent 6 years on the Board of Selectmen. I've been on almost about every committee there is. I didn't try to concentrate on just one committee. I tried to keep it balanced and an open mind person. Don't have any particular agendas in one direction or another. I need to weigh the facts, what's good for the town, what's not good for the town, whether it's popular or it's not popular. I have a lot of experience in the corporate world. I've managed a lot of big projects from the high-tech industry, whether it be PLCs, semiconductor industry, or actually I first came to New Hampshire when Wang Laboratories was still in service when I got out of the Navy the first time. So I spent 8 years in the Navy as a submariner. I was 3 years as an instructor at Advanced Submarine School. I got out because there was no pay at the time until Reagan came in thereafter. He made the pay was more equivalent. That was my first motivation because I really did like the service. It wasn't because I didn't like it. It was just a bigger opportunity, needed the finances. I've also recently decided to expand my service to the community. I got elected to a 3-year term to the school budget committee, which I'll be starting this year. I'm quite familiar with the finances of the town. I've done it for 6 years. Spent the last year as representative to the budget committee. Not as great a position because I had to represent what the board wanted, not what definitely not what I wanted every time. But that's kind of a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but you have to do it. I spent, say I said, 8 years in the Navy. I then, after 9/11, I spent 12 years in the Army until I retired because I hit the age limit, so I couldn't stay in any longer. I came to Plaistow after I came back from my deployment with the Army in 2007, and I purchased a home here in Plaistow, and that's what brought me here after deployment. I said, oh, it's time to find a new place closer to where I worked, which was in Gloucester, Massachusetts, so it was a long haul from Manchester. So I came to Plaistow. I think I have a lot to offer. I'm already familiar with the budget, so even though I wasn't on the budget committee, I have a lot of budget experience. I do understand what the big pictures are here in Plaistow. I understand what we're trying to accomplish to make it a better community. And yes, it is a balance. I'm a cheapskate. I don't like to waste money. But in the last couple of years, we've had to spend some money because, there are things that had to be done. It couldn't be kicked down the road anymore. So that's about it for me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Julian. All right. Mr. Anthony.
My name is Phil Spitaleri. I've been a resident of Plaistow for about 5 years or so. I did run on the ballot for this position in the budget committee. I came in 4th. Looks like I have a chance to come in 8th. So, might not be my year. But professionally, I'm an electrical engineer for a defense contractor up in Exeter, New Hampshire. I'm a father of an 8-year-old daughter who goes to Bakey School in Kingston. I have no experience in town governments at all, but I've been watching the way the country's been going, and as a veteran of the military, I feel like I should be serving my community rather than complaining about what's going on and try and get active and learn more about what's going on in the town around me and get to learn get to know some more people around here. So I look forward to the opportunity if you guys are good enough to grant it to me, and I'd look forward to working with you all if I'm given the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Phil.
Phil.
Richard?
Good afternoon. Richard Anthony. I live in obviously Plaistow, Village Way. Probably a little over 15 years. Professionally, I work for Empower Retirement Plans. I currently do IT work. Before that, 15 years, I did regulatory compliance with qualified retirement plans, where DOL, Treasury regulations, and then also filing 5500s and other compliance-oriented testing. So in terms of skills that I'd bring to the table, I'm comfortable with reading financial documents, reconciling million-dollar plans to a penny. And I have 2 kids that are in Plaistow currently, and in that sense, I have a vested interest in what happens to Plaistow, and that it's a community that they're growing up in. And I have 15 years as in Army, National Guard, Reserves, and if I can help out, I think that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Katie?
Good evening. I am Katie Knudsen. I live at 3 Walbrook Drive. For the last 10 years, I've been a firefighter critical care paramedic for a very busy fire EMS department in Gatlinburg. I had extensive experience with our budget. I know how to pick a hill and stand on it. I believe in doing the right thing, even if it's not the most easiest or most popular, but it is the right thing. Fairly new. My husband is the fire chief, so if I was on this board, I would definitely recuse myself of anything of that matter. I know it's been done before. I believe Kristen Savage, she ran on this committee for 15 years while her husband was the police officer, so it's been done. Goal-oriented and object-driven. I believe in doing the right thing, like I said, and I might not know everything, but I do know where to go look. So just want to be part of the community and do anything I can to help out, so.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for coming in. All right, so what we'll end up doing then is, once it's published, it's been put on the site, then from there, what we'll do is, if we have no other people that are shown interest, at our next scheduled meeting, we can then fill the vacancies, the 3 vacancies that are left, and then go from there. All right? Yes.
I would say that in probably another 4 weeks, we could have another meeting and wrap this up very quickly.
Okay.
They'll be filling out letters of interest, which will pretty much say what they just said.
Right.
And we will all get a copy of that to review before we vote, so.
All right.
Yeah, so, yeah, I was just going to ask should we set a deadline now for submissions? And then at what point would we or should we decide if we're going to need to do interviews or not? I don't know. I'm just reading the procedure that was in the packet here, so. I don't know if we decide that. I guess my question is, do we decide that tonight, or do we decide that at a different meeting after we see how many people have actually submitted letters? I don't know the answer.
Well,
I can tell you about history. History is we've always done interviews.
Okay.
But we haven't had as many openings.
Correct.
We were in the past just filling 1 slot, so it was a lot simpler, so.
Got you. And again, forgive me for asking the historical question, just gives me the perspective. So is the interview a public process, a non-public process? How does that work?
Public, just
Public,
like we
okay.
just did, pretty much as what we
great.
just did, yep.
Excellent.
all right.
And maybe we can just make the decision based on the information they provide us. But then again, if we have other people that apply,
Right.
they haven't had a chance to come forward, so.
Well, I guess that's where my question was coming from is, if we set another meeting, I guess we've already made the decision if we're doing interviews or not, because the people would have to come to prepare to be interviewed unless we were to have a 3rd meeting, right?
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Well, right. So that's, I guess, why I was asking.
My
If we're going to do
opinion.
interviews, we should just say we're going to do interviews now and be prepared for that meeting to have that.
So,
And I
Bob,
think that within a week's time, we should have at least interest. I don't think it needs to go out more than a week we have enough, we have plenty of interest now.
Right.
If we give it another week, if there is someone that is interested,
Sure.
great. And
Well,
at that
there has
point,
to be a deadline, and for some reason, 10 days sticks in my mind.
10 days
Sign-up
from the
period.
posting. It's 10 days from the posting.
What,
usually.
10 days from when it goes on to the
Posting.
Yes.
website?
10
All right.
business days or calendar days
Right.
or?
So
Right.
it'll get in there quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, we could schedule a meeting for 3 weeks from now.
Sure.
If we wanted to wrap it up sooner.
would work.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Bob, so after 10 days, if somebody wants to be on the budget committee, they should come into the next meeting, have an interview, and then we can vote.
And at that point, we will
That
have, right, we should have also their letters of intent at that point also.
Letters of interest.
So, of interest to show. So it shouldn't take much to then, at that point, after hearing anyone new that has decided to come on board, to hear what they've got to say, and then we will have their letter of interest at that point and these 4 young ladies and gentlemen that have showed up. And we'll be able to put, at that point, make our decision on that time, at that time. I would assume that we would have enough knowledge by then. Yes.
So then one other, again, procedural question, just because I don't know. So we would vote for all of them in one lot. It's not like we would vote for one and then they become a member who's able to vote.
No.
For, right? We would, I'm just being clear, so we're, okay.
That's right. We
Perfect.
would fill all 4 positions in one shot.
Okay, 3.
3, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I know what you meant.
Again, I'm sorry. But yes, all 3 positions would be
Okay,
filled at that
perfect.
one time. They would not become voting at that
Okay.
point, yes.
Seeing that we've never done this before, when we have this next meeting, are we going to talk amongst ourselves and say, I like her, I don't like him, I want to vote for this? Are we going to discuss it, or are we just going to vote?
Right?
Yes.
What I suggest is that the letters of intent get emailed to us in advance so that
Yep.
we can look them over, kind of get a feel for, personal feel. And I think that'll make the process go quicker. I don't think we want to be discussing it between us and.
Right,
I
so
don't- Right.
we'll have an idea when we come into the meeting at that point.
Right.
And at that point, if you want to have those people, I guess, still come in and interview, right? Because you're still going to want to hear from them.
Correct.
At that point, I guess, we could then vote at that point. I mean, we wouldn't have to have these people come back either at that point, correct? We'd have them all in.
I think it would be their option.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anything else? Yes.
I guess one more. So should we predetermine or have a predetermined set of interview questions that we want to ask everybody so that it's the same? Or let me rephrase that. What do you think would be the best way to approach the interview process for this?
I don't know, you kind of get the feeling, like, you kind of get the feeling from just when they present themselves, you should have an idea. I would hope that you would have some kind of an idea with their background or whatever at that point. To ask everyone the same question, I think we asked the same thing, we would ask the same thing of them as we did tonight. What would you bring to the table? Exactly, because at that point, you're going to have an idea. So what is it that drives them to come to this, to be a part of this town?
Sure.
And
But-
I think that would be
And it's appropriate to ask, if we have a specific follow-up question for one candidate or another, that would be acceptable,
yes,
folks
it is.
think?
It
Okay.
is.
I just felt, it seemed like it'd be easier to set some of these ground rules now before we officially know who might be applying, because it's just odd to leave this meeting not knowing what we're going to potentially walk into. And also, it's helpful for the public who might be watching to have a good sense of what they might be signing up for.
Good point.
Or not. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Do we set a date for the next meeting?
Yeah, I would say 3 weeks from today would be, would give us time for whoever's going to apply. And then also from there, we'll see that the forms, that their letters of interest would be emailed to each member so that you can then look at them prior to the meeting, so that when you come in, you'll at least have some direction that you want to go in. And also, it is not unheard of if you do have a question to ask them. I mean, it is part of the interview process. But to set up and have everybody answer the same question, I guess, as long as we know what it is that they're, what they'll bring to the table, and then you will have an idea at that point.
If we have
May
suggestions.
3rd,
Sorry.
May 3rd or May 4? May 4, right?
May 4th.
If we're doing Tuesday, it would be May 4.
Yeah, it's the
4th, okay.
meeting on Tuesday, May 4th.
And did you say 10 days for the?
Well,
the
we have to give
website?
them 10 days, yes, so within
I think
10,
I think
yes,
that's a part of the policy.
right.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get that on the website. and
That'd
get
be
Beth to
great.
help us. Yep.
So our next meeting on May 4th. Yes.
6:30?
6:30,
Yep,
yes.
okay.
Yes, Bob.
if there are questions that we think of that would be appropriate for asking as a group, we should forward them to the chair, and you can determine whether they're appropriate.
That sounds great. That makes sense.
So then at that point, we'll also, at that meeting, we can get a tentative meeting scheduled. From my understanding is, once the town manager meets with the department heads, he then gets the budgets together. From there, the budgets then will go to the Board of Selectmen, at which time the Board of Selectmen look at them. They then pass it on. Once they have completed theirs, they'll pass it on to us. The time schedule that we're looking for is by the first week of November. If everything is worked out the way it was explained to me, basically the Board of Selectmen will have, say, the month of October to completely go through this, get this ready, and then it then gets sent to us. So then in November, so I would say the first week of November, we would be looking at actually our first meeting, because at that point, we would see the budget for the first time, the first week in November.
So that would be November 2nd.
That would, yes.
Can I just suggest something
Absolutely.
that may help? When we get the budget from the town manager, would it be beneficial for you to also get that copy as a draft? Because there's typically very, very few items that the Board of Selectmen make changes to. And you would at least be able to have the budget earlier, and you'd be able to start going through it, and then as soon as we
Absolutely.
get our changes, we can submit them to you.
Absolutely, that would, yes.
Before we really lock into a schedule, we really need to discuss whether we're going to alter. I mean, what you're saying is pretty much what we did last year. Only thing last year, we didn't get it too much later. But I think we should discuss whether we want to have the budgets presented to us by department heads. We've done that in the past. The last 3 years, we have not. And I think there's some feeling that I know I would like to see us have more exposure to department heads presenting their budgets to us.
Now, in conversation that I had earlier today with Mark, he is on board. I think that's a perfect idea, Greg. If we get the budget at the same time, we can then look it over, formulate any questions that we have ourselves, and then when the budget gets to us in November, we'll already have an idea what seems out of line to whatever we want to go with. Now, and then the questions, we would then approach Mark and say, Mark, I would like to speak to on this Tuesday. I'd like to see, let's say, rec, library, something, just go down with a few department heads and take the budget that them, and more than happy to let them explain what it is. And by looking at it ahead of time, this shouldn't be a long process if we have it in advance. We don't need them to explain to us, like, I'm going to use the library, for example, what they spent the money on, why they're spending $30,000 on books, okay? But we may have another line item that we're in. So we don't need them to explain every single line. So I'm not seeing where this could be a long, drawn-out process if we've already seen the budget. If we have some questions about a line item, we can then ask it at that point when the person comes in, because I think for time-wise, we're all time is precious with us. To go and ask them to explain every single line could be cumbersome. Whereas if we have something that we want to focus on with that department, we can then ahead of time, we will know, and that may speed up the process it takes to approve each one of these budgets.
May I?
Yes.
So would it make sense, or is it reasonable to think that if the department heads were going to present their budgets to the selectmen earlier, could they just present them jointly, even though we can't take any action yet? I wonder if it just makes sense for both the selectmen and the budget committee to hear some of those presentations at the same time, so that the department heads, that essentially they're delivering the same information and we're all hearing it the same way. And I speak from experience. Where I work in our district, that's exactly what we do as department heads. We present to both groups, and then from there, each group might take a different angle on what they need to do with it, but everybody's getting the same information at the same time. And I recognize we can't make that decision alone. Selectmen would have to be agreeable to it, so I guess I'm offering it as an idea.
Right. Yes, Greg.
We would be very happy to do anything that's going to be more efficient.
Right.
Just to warn you, though, we do not have individual department heads unless there's something very, very exceptional. So we might have one department head or maybe two department heads. Most of the time, we rely on Greg Kobe and Mark Pearson to be able to answer the questions we have. Plus, I think we might be a little bit more involved as the budget is not starting to get developed.
Yep.
So if we are definitely, if we have a presentation from the fire department or the police department, absolutely, we could set something up. I'm sure Dean could help, and maybe it might be something that we just do it electronically. So that you'd be able to dial into the number, be able to communicate during the presentation.
Excuse me, Robert?
Yes, Bob.
I would just like to take us back to a little bit of history and how we used to do this. And I'm not saying we should return to that. But the way we used to do it is beginning the middle of September, 25% of the budgets would be presented by the department heads at a meeting. And over a 4-week period, from the middle of September till the middle of October, the budgets were first presented by the department heads to the Board of Selectmen. The following week, they were presenting them to us. So we lagged a week behind the Board of Selectmen, but they were being presented to the Board of Selectmen and then to the Budget Committee. Now, it doesn't matter to us what the Board of Selectmen does, but having worked under both systems, and John has worked under the old system a lot longer than I have, it was very beneficial to have a face-to-face with the department heads, especially the big departments, police, fire, the larger department. There were always a lot of questions. No, not every line item had to be explained. A lot of them, it just went through it very quickly. Others, we kind of got a little bit bogged down because they were asking for a big increase and we wanted to know why. But over a 4-week period, and I don't mind pushing this off to November, that's fine. If we have the budgets presented to us November 2nd, in the first 4 weeks of November, that's great. We still have October, I'm sorry. I feel as though we need them presented to us in October. I mean, if we don't get them until November, then we're getting close to the holidays, we're scrambling, and that's what we went through the last 2 years. And I just,
Yeah.
it was just too rushed.
So just, I guess my question would be is if we are, as the Budget Committee is getting the budget as a whole at the same time in the Board of Selectmen, one would assume that the Budget Committee would be then on their own looking through the budget.
Yes.
If we could have a work session, perhaps, together collaboratively, so that we could have questions in hand to the selectmen and work hand in hand with them, so that they could ask those questions to the department heads or to the town manager or the finance director at the time that the budget is presented for each individual department, then I think that would clarify a lot of things as the Budget Committee goes through, their individual budgets in November. The other thing I would have to say is I understand and I agree with the police, fire, and highway. Those are very large budgets and they're very complex. So to have the department head on hand, I think makes sense. But for the smaller departments, you're talking 14 lines. They go very quickly, and so if there's not a huge influx one way or another, I really truly believe that those questions can be answered through the selectmen in their presentation. But I agree with Bob that, you want to know what you're talking about prior to.
Well, and I hear you, but in that text, if we got the budgets at the time that it was presented to the selectmen, we would then be able to look it over. Unfortunately, what happens, I think I think that would work out great if we got questions together, but, and when I listen to Greg, he mentions that they don't bring in all the department heads. So to send questions over to the selectmen, I'm not sure, at that point then, are you saying bring in the department heads to selectmen at that point and explain our questions?
Right, because then what's happening is that you're getting the entire picture. So you're having them come in and present them and being able to answer the question as they go through the budget item.
What we have to realize is that the Board of Selectmen meet every other week.
Right.
When we get into the budget season, we're meeting every week. So in last year, they spent 45 minutes a meeting to go through the budget. So they spent, what, an hour and a half?
We
And
did
then
two
another half an
45,
hour to kind of wrap
two
it up.
45 minutes and another 10-minute
Right.
period, so about 100 minutes.
They're not going into the detail that we
Right.
go into.
So if we were then at that point to be able to bring them in, once we've already looked at our budget, I think it would not be a problem for us to do our due diligence at that point, instead of sending questions.
Right.
If we send the questions to the selectmen, my only fear is that we're now prolonging their period of time that they're doing with their heads. And what if you get a question, you ask a question for them to give to the department head, but then it creates another one that you have then. Whereas if we have them in front of us at our meeting and we have our questions, we can then get them to elaborate on something we don't understand. That was my only concern, was if we ask a question today of them, what if that sparks another one in your head and you want to get more clarification on it? Whereas if they're sitting in front of our meeting, it does not affect them any longer than their 45 minutes that they go through. Yes.
I don't want to prolong this, but we have two very experienced people in this room that have been involved in the Budget Committee for many years, and I'm sure that they have some feelings about how we should proceed.
Okay.
Because Darrell was on the Budget Committee last year, so he's seen what it's like now versus what it used to be like. And the same thing with John Sherman. I'm sure he's watched a few of our Budget Committee meetings.
Can I
And
respond to
their input could help us.
correct some things, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one real critical thing, if you have questions, Mark and Greg will both be online to be able to get those questions answered. And if there's an issue of, we really think we have enough questions that we want to bring a department head in, they can make it happen. You don't have to come to us to do that. Secondly, we are scheduling our schedule so that instead of having 2 meetings a month, all through budget season, we'll have 3 meetings a month. So we'll be very similar, and we will try to get through the material, and any change that we make, I'll communicate that to you. As soon as the meeting that is done, I'll communicate that to you so that you'll have that change. So if you get the draft in September, you'll have a good understanding of what the final budget's going to look like. You won't have to rework the whole thing.
Also, the hopes is that we can then also, the minutes are available to us from the selectmen. Those will be sent, those we're going to, in the process of get those emailed out to each member as they become available, along with a link to the selectmen's meeting, that if you would like to listen or watch that in your leisure, instead if you can't attend or whatever. That way you can at least also see exactly what has transpired at the selectmen's meeting. And if you choose to watch it or you don't, that's totally up to you. But I think with that information also, and the budget in hand, I think that will give us a good idea of what direction, what will we want to ask and what direction we want to go in the first week in November.
Can I ask if we could ask our new vice chair for his opinion. He's been very, very quiet. I know he has opinions about this.
Yeah. Speak to us.
Doug, you're on mute.
You're on mute, buddy.
Unmute you.
Come on now. Let's get with the program.
I'm sorry, I'm new to technology, Jim.
There you go.
It doesn't hurt to talk to individuals specifically about specific line items, but at the same time, you don't want to beat a dead horse if the budget, if the Board of Selectmen has already done it. So preventing redundancy would be ideal. But then again, I lack experience in comparison to most of you on the board, so I'll default to experience.
Good, thank you.
Could we get input from Daryl and from
Yeah.
John Sherman?
Daryl?
Oh, I've seen it both ways. Personally, I like, the selectmen would get their budget, they would review it. They typically, in the past anyways, would have it to us much before, at least a good feeling of, before November, so that we're not trying to crowd everything in at the end. I liked having, I was on boards where we did have every department head come in. But I agree, some of the small departments, you just don't need to. But the big departments, I feel as though should come in. And for the very reason someone brought up, I think it was you, Bob, is when you're talking to them, you might have a specific question that may generate another question that you didn't think about, and you don't want to have that lag of time to get an answer. And I think it's for each, except for the big ones like the fire and the police, they're in and out. It wasn't we spent hours with these people. Even the fire and police, it wasn't usually hours. We may be, I think when we scheduled it, John, initially, we would plan like a fire department in and maybe just one or two other small ones so that we didn't try to make it an all-nighter,
Right.
So, but that's my feeling.
John, do you have anything to add to that? Well,
So what's the question?
no, it's just, did you have any input on like Derek just said, we bringing in how many department heads we bring in, how we proceed with our questions and things of that nature?
I've got some points to make. I'm not sure that they're sequential, so.
Okay.
So live with me here. I never watch a budget committee meeting,
Okay?
and I don't watch Timberlane School District meetings either. I can only take so much. As far as the scheduling goes, it's up to the budget committee to set the schedule. Basically, if you look at the RSA says the budget committee can have anybody come in that they want to come in, and they should do it on a schedule that's produced by the budget committee. So some of the things you're talking about are pretty much restricted to a certain time frame. I tend to like the idea of having the department heads come in. And I think that's more than just history speaking, about, that's not how we used to do it. But that's up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. You get a lot of information talking to department heads. It's their opportunity to brag about their department and things that are going on. So from that point of view, I think it's very handy. I would suggest the first thing you do is draft up a schedule and put it on paper, and let's see what it looks like. Let's see if we had department heads come in, when would it be? And how does that fall in the schedule? I think some of the dates you're talking about are going to be pretty hard to meet when you get to December, because things happen in December. So I tend to lean toward doing it a little bit earlier. I like the idea of having department heads come in. I know that can be an inconvenience or whatever. I guess I would suggest the way you might want to think about it is you can have anybody come in to the Budget Committee meeting for any reason. You have that authority. So if you don't want the department heads to come in, you can just do that by saying you set up a schedule and the department heads aren't on it. Or if you do want department heads to come in, set up a schedule with all of the departments listed on the schedule and then negotiate it with the town manager. If you're adamant, you can insist that the department heads be there. That's part of the RSA. We don't want to get into that business of fighting over that kind of thing, but you can do it that way. I had one other point to make, but I guess I forgot it.
Thank you.
I forgot what it was, but that happens.
That's all right.
All right, thank you.
Julian?
Just so John can hear me, I agree 100% with everything John said. But I will make one point in addition to that. My first 4 years as a selectman, and I worked with the Budget Committee, things went pretty good. The last 2 years, I found a lot of frustration on the part of the Board of Selectmen. I found the Budget Committee being very frustrated the last couple of years. And some of it may be attributed to the fact that the Board of Selectmen decided to do every other week. And it made you try to push everything into one meeting for a 2-week period. In the meantime, the Budget Committee is trying to figure out what's going on and having to wait. And when you go to November and December, you might have 6-7 weeks of meetings, and that's it. And all of a sudden, you're up against a deadline. You're trying to make a lot of important decisions in a very short period of time. And you can't even think of the questions probably because you don't get the nosh on what you've learned to determine what you want to ask. I would implore the Board of Selectmen during the budget season that they go back to the way it was, just for the budget season.
It's already done.
Have meetings more often during the budget.
It's already done, Julie. I just mentioned it. I don't know if you heard.
Yes, I think that was the
Whole bunch of
frustration.
process.
I think the process will be
currently 3 meetings, and we have the ability of putting a 4th meeting if necessary. But we basically wanted to make sure that we populate enough meetings so that the busy time of the year, we don't have to have a 3-hour meeting. We can basically partition stuff out, and we're available.
Well, thank you.
So-
I just wanted the field to finish.
Yep, no problem.
And not
Go ahead.
leave. And I think that was a big problem in the last 2 years, and I think that will be a great help from both sides, because it worked really well my first 4 years as a selectman, and didn't seem to work too well the last 2 years. And I think I saw a lot of people in the Budget Committee very frustrated, and it was very difficult to watch. Because it's an important job, and you want to make good decisions based on being able to think about what you're making decisions on. So I think that's going to help a lot. And I believe it should start a little earlier than in November, because it gets too short. So maybe both committees could start a little earlier.
I appreciate
Even if it's a shorter meeting, have one, talk about what you want to talk about, ask the questions, and they generate more questions usually, and you could not have to rush at the end.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I think we're all agreed that department heads coming in is the way to go. I mean, especially if there are questions and we can move along. Yes, Bob?
I'd like to recommend that I will help come up with a breakdown, because I've done that before in the past. We've had department heads come in. It's 25%, 25, and bigger departments are not all mixed together. You know, you spread them out, and then the town manager looks over, and it's flexible. You can make adjustments if somebody's behind in their budget. But I strongly recommend to this committee that October, we spend the 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th to go through the budgets, have them presented to at least the larger department heads. We get the budget presented to us, not just stuck in an envelope in our folder, but presented to us where we're able to ask questions right there on the spot without submitting them and waiting for the reports to come back. That gets us really into the budget in October. In November, we can wrap it up by just reviewing them again, wrapping it up. Even if we have an election on a Tuesday in November, we don't have to worry about missing that one. We don't have to worry about being here Thanksgiving week, Christmas week, New Year's week. That was
understand.
not pleasant last year or the
you're
year
right.
before.
I agree.
I just don't want to go through that again this year. Avoid it at all costs, and that's why I'm recommending these things. Thank you.
I think that in all fairness to the budget, to the department heads too, though, if we're bringing in a department head on, we have them coming in on, say, next Tuesday, you're having a department head from the rec and the police department. I feel they need to have the questions or the concerns ahead of time, only because
Absolutely.
it will allow them to come in prepared for the meeting with the information. I think that is going to make things go a lot smoother, whereas if we were to bring them in cold, it's like deer in the headlights look, and now we're pushing them off another week because they need to get that information for us. So if we do have the budget, I think it would be advantageous to us if we could at least put together the questions for that department head prior to their showing up, once we have the schedule. Yes?
Bob, I agree with you, and some of the questions that we think of beforehand should be given to you to pass off to the department heads. But if a department head comes in here and can't answer a question on one of his line items, he hasn't done his homework. He should know the answers to every one of those line items when he comes in, and we should be able to, off the cuff, ask him a question.
Well, and I'm sure that could be the case, but unfortunately what happens too is if you want some kind of a breakdown of what their expenses were over the year, you say, well, how is it that you spent, let's say the library, how is it you spent $30,000 on books this year? You want to ask them, well, we bought these many of this. Whereas if they can show you what the purchase, they can give you some kind of breakdown of what it was. We spent it this, we discarded this many, with that amount of money we made on. You see what I'm saying? If we at least give them some idea what we're going to ask them, if there's any documentation or anything that they need to either present to us or strengthen what we're asking them, any little bit of help we can give these department heads in advance so they come in prepared, I think wouldn't hurt. Doesn't mean that you can't ask them another question and them not to have that answer. But if there is something that is really bugging you about a number, if we give them a heads up and say, hey, look, we're really concerned about this number you have here, they can at least bring in some kind of documentation, validifying, showing some validation to why that number is so high or why it went up this year to past year. So I think it's only fair, for us to ask in advance. You don't want to be blindsided. You wouldn't want to be blindsided if somebody called you in. You kind of want to have some idea, bring documentation, because we've known in the past, since last year, we sent questions over and we had to wait a while to get the answer back, because then it went through Mark, then it went to the department head. From the department head, it went back to Mark, which was then answered the question, then sent back to us. Whereas if we have the question and we have the ability to have that department head in, instead of sending the questions to Mark, we can then send them we can get them together, send them to Mark and say, look, we'd like to see the department head, and this is what we'd like to discuss. Why is this one so high and this one isn't? Or at least they have some idea what they're coming in for, and they can show us documentation. Whereas if they just explain it to us and don't have anything to substantiate it, we may sit here and scratch our heads saying, well, okay, that sounds okay, but we don't have, how can you show us that? You know what I mean? I just think it might be fair and reasonable.
I'm right there with you. I agree.
All right. So at our May 4th meeting, what we'll do is we'll have, we should have a better idea what our meeting schedule is going to be. I will look into getting us when the budget is then presented to the selectmen, I will also look into getting us the budget at the same time so that we can send it, so that then it'll be submitted to all of us to have in advance to go over. At that point, we can set, we'll be able to know, because it's going to take time for you guys to go through it, but at least, like you said, if you want to start in October to go over these and discuss the questions that we have, at that point, we can then schedule the people we need to see. Am I correct?
Yes.
In assuming that that would work to our advantage without duplicating the process? Because honestly, if the selectmen were to change something by the time it hits us, and we're going there and we've already gone round and round on this issue, it may be a moot point. It may have already been changed, the question may have already been asked. Yes?
Historically, there's been very few changes made by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay?
If it's 5 or 10, I'd be amazed.
Right, I would too.
Okay.
Very,
So
very
it's
few.
not a big deal. It's just a small adjustment to a line item.
Right.
And we either approve it or we don't.
Well, then I agree. October would not be a bad time to start.
Yep.
Providing that, now customarily, does the Board of Selectmen get the budget usually by the beginning of October? Is that when you see it? Customarily, when it should be.
Let me give you an exact time. I'll talk to Greg Kobe and get a good, strong feeling about where he thinks it'll be, and then I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay?
On the May 4th, if possible, yeah. I
In the past, we didn't know what the bottom line budget was until we had all the budgets presented to us.
Okay,
So it was a matter of 25% a week,
right.
4 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that once we've seen the budget, we'll all have a better idea what departments we would like to, that they're
I'll
in
help you with the
question,
list.
and move on from there. And I think that may help us to have more time.
So we'll finalize.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's Mark,
Hi,
Town
Bob.
Manager.
Yes.
Hi. So congratulations on becoming the chairman, and
Thank you.
congratulations to the new members and the existing members. Just a comment that I want the whole board to think about as I've been listening to the discussion about which board gets the budget by which day. So historically, since I've been here, we've tried to target the Board of Selectmen getting the budget for the first week in October. And generally speaking, they use the month of October, and that's why the Budget Committee receives the Board of Selectmen budget for the first week in November. So let me go backwards from October, when the Board of Selectmen receives the budget, which is the town manager's budget. So conceivably, that gives the town manager and the finance director the month of September to review what the department heads have submitted for their requests to the finance director and myself. So we're back to asking the department heads to submit all of their requests by September 1st. So why do I bring that up? Let's just look at the calendar and say, a department head is going to look at the historical data for the first 9 months of the year, or less, maybe 8.5 months, and submit what they think is the reasonable amount that they need to run the department and provide the services that they need, but yet they only have 8.5 months of financial data to try to predict what it costs to run the department and offer the services for 2021. So as you talk about, let's get the budget sooner, you need to understand that you're basically backing up the department heads. So if we were to back this up by that month to get the budget to the selectmen for the month of September, so that the budget committee could have it for October, let's back that up now. So now the town manager is going to be backed up till August. And then we're going to be saying to department heads, you have 7 months to formulate what you think is the right amount of money for the following year, and you've only got 7 months' experience in this year to figure out what you think you need for next year. Now, one final point. Assuming that happens hypothetically, and the budget committee is sitting there in November to go through all of that information, and they're looking at the current numbers in November, and the current numbers in November are showing that the trend is for the department, for any one of these departments, that the trend is not on the same trend as it was back in July. Then the budget committee starts asking questions, well, how come you're spending this much? And how come this? And you're asking pointed questions to the departments. I just want you to understand, or at least think about, what it would be like for you to be a department head and only have 7 months of data and try to predict to build a budget for the following 12 months, and you're only 7 months into this budget. Just want you to all understand, by backing things up, you're backing it up to try to have the department heads give you an accurate description. I really don't think that the department heads can tell you in July where their budget's going to finish for the year, or what they need, and what they need for the following year, unless you have a budget that is doesn't have any variables in it. And I'll use this example, like the health officer. The health officer's budget is pretty consistent every year and doesn't have a lot of variables, but there's a lot of departments that would have variables. So I just wanted to make that point, just for the board, for the committee to think about, and for everybody to think about. Thank you.
Mark, so do you see a problem with when the Board of Selectmen get the budget? What is the issue where if the Budget Committee also got the same copy to look at, to see what, to look at it at the same time as the Board of Selectmen are? Wouldn't require them to back up the dates any further to August, would it? If we're just getting this document at the same time, because are we not still going to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, last year we got updates each month, did we not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you're correct. So your question is if the Board of, well, not if, but if the Board of Selectmen receives their information for the month of October, could the Budget Committee receive the same information at the same time as it's given to the Board of Selectmen? The answer is yes. Very simply speaking, I would be presenting the town manager's recommendations to the Board of Selectmen on or about October 1st.
Right.
I could forward those documents to the Board of Selectmen, to the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee could just follow along for those 3 or 4 meetings in October of everything that the Board of Selectmen is reviewing. And let's just say, for sake of argument, that they only look at, out of the 34 departments, they actually look and ask questions on 10 of them. So you can follow along with what they asked and learn as much as you can and review the budget and formulate your questions. And then when you come to your first meeting in November, you already know what the Board of Selectmen has done with whatever they've asked. And the Budget Committee is already saying, well, I want to know more information about this, or I'd like to ask other questions about this. And you're all ready to go. My point is that, yes, you're correct, Mr. Chairman, to overlap the Board of Selectmen with the information and get ready for November. Get ready for the first week. And the first meeting should not be talking about something other than the budgets. And the
Absolutely,
second
I
meeting
agree.
shouldn't be about talking about something else but the budgets. And the third meeting shouldn't be about talking about something else but the budgets. Because that's exactly what happened this past year.
And I appreciate that, Mark, and I think that as a board member, I think that getting the budget at the same time that the selectmen do would at least give us a chance to pore over the information and formulate the questions. I think that would be a bigger help than it was in the past, where we ended up just getting it in our folder when the selectmen were done, and then having to look it over at that point. I think that we can, at our November meeting, or if we do, we can at least go with it, hit the ground running. We'll already have an idea where we're going, what our questions are, and focus more on, like you said, the budget, and less on superfluous stuff that really has nothing to do with the town budget. All right. And while we're on this, so Mark, as the chairman, I would like to invite you and Greg to our meetings, whether it be remotely or in person. In the past, you have been at our other meetings, but I want to formally invite both of you to be a part of these meetings, and help us through some of the stuff that, any questions that we have. At least you'll be there and be able to help us in our meetings to get things facilitated quicker, if that is okay with both of you.
We would be, I'm going to speak on behalf of Greg Colby, we would be more than anxious to be there at your meetings. But I will tell you, we were never even invited to one budget committee meeting last year, not one. However, we attended remotely, and we were very rarely even consulted. And it was an insult, and I think it's disrespectful. And I would rather go with your suggestion of being invited, and thank you for inviting us. We would be glad to attend this year and participate. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to start, like I said, this is a new year, a new group. Like to make sure that we're on the right track. And I think as a group, having you there and being available to the group would be priceless, and I appreciate your acceptance of that. All right? Yep. All right, moving on to the review and discussion of the 2020 budget and the budgeting process. Inside our packets we have basically tells what it explains the responsibilities of the budget committee. If you'd like, I can read the whole thing. Otherwise, for sake of time, I would appreciate it if everybody took the time to read it and go over it. And I think that will pretty much outline what our discussions are. We also have we have 2 dates coming up for roles and responsibilities. That is a Zoom meeting. If I'm not mistaken, it is on the 19th and the 26th, is that? And that will be held in the evening. If you have not got a link or an invitation to that, we can see that will be, could ask, Charlene, could you see if we could get that emailed to each member again? Just what the 2 dates are for those Zoom meetings?
I
Yes.
believe that it's only the 19th.
I'm sorry?
I believe that they changed it to only the 19th because nobody signed up for the 26th.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. So the 19th would be, make that link available that way. And you would need to accept the RSVP so that they know who's going to be there. It is a Zoom meeting, and the place at which it's going to be held will be forwarded at that time too, when they have that definitely decided where it's going to be. All right. And is there any new business that anybody would like to discuss. Yes, Bob.
Could I just have clarification? I'm confused whether we have decided to have department heads, at least the larger ones, present their budgets. Have we decided to do that?
Yes.
We have.
Yes, it's been, I think the consensus of the board was, by getting the budgets presented to us at the same time that the Board of Selectmen get it, we'll have a better idea what the questions are that we have, what department heads we want to start with, okay? And you'd also offer to help facilitate that. I would like to see that happen. And yeah, that way we can hit the ground running. We'll know what department head's going to show up on what day. We'll have our questions already put together. The only thing I have to do is I will, once we have an idea what boards we want and on what day, we're going to submit that to Mark, and then he can help facilitate having the department heads available for that evening, and we can go from there. So I think that is definitely the way to go, is to have our department. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if you're going to do this in parallel with us,
Yes.
I'd like to see if it's okay with you to invite all of the selectmen, if they want to either attend the budget meetings that you're having with your department heads, or be able to do it electronically, so that if you're doing presentations, they get to be able to see that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a viable option for us to do, yes.
You would be able to facilitate that in the month of October?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
very good.
perfect. That was good. Any old business, anything that we have not covered? Yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
I've got a few things, if this is the time to bring them up.
absolutely, Peter.
Okay. But you just said in order to hit the ground running, for the people that haven't been on the committee before, you probably should get some training. So the training schedule at New Hampshire Municipal Association should be well passed out to everybody so that they can go get it, and then you can start out and you'll know what's going on. Like just getting the book, knowing the territory and things like that. It'd be good to get that stuff before you even start the budget process.
Excellent,
Point.
excellent
Second
suggestion.
thing is, I don't know everybody's email address. I think as soon as possible, we ought to get an email going out that gives everybody email address so that we can talk to everybody, That, is that possible? I don't know your email address, Charlene, do I?
Yeah, but it was included in the emails. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah,
So if everybody
Have it, Peter.
could email you that's on
Sure.
the committee and send it out, we'll get a complete email address listing.
So can I ask a question about the email, Peter? I don't mean to cut you off. How much conversation should be happening by email anyway?
Well, one of the things is that you can't make decisions on an email that has more than, if you have a quorum. You can talk to each other, in my opinion. You can always talk to each other, but you can't decide anything if there's a quorum, and if it's going to everybody, you shouldn't make a decision. Is that what everybody thinks?
Well, I would prefer no conversations,
I would agree.
in relative.
Because somebody writes to you an email, you can use reply all. If it's not making a decision, it's just an opinion that you're given or answering a question. Reply all does not automatically mean that you're violating the right to know.
Yes.
We just discussed this at our last BOS meeting yesterday, and there are some guidelines from the New Hampshire MMA about emails. One of the things is you do not want to use reply all. You don't want to give that ability. Happening, anything that should go to the board should come from you, and then you could either send it to Beth to send out, and she'll put everyone's name in the BCC. Okay? So everybody will get a copy, but they won't be able to hit reply all and respond back and forth. Second thing, because you are all probably using personal emails versus like a Plaistow.com account, if you do receive information or you're sending information out, those email messages become public knowledge, or public property.
Exactly.
And they could actually come and say, we need to take your whole computer
Right.
for this case. So do not recommend you have communication back and forth between each other. You can do it over the phone, that's fine, but just be very, very careful. The last thing is, Peter's right, when you have a quorum rather, you're actually having a meeting. And there's a little confusion with that, and that is that if I communicate to Peter, and then I communicate to Bob about the same thing, and then I communicate with Christine, and then with Brian, I just created a meeting, even though I did it all individually. So that's how the state law looks at emails. So be very, very careful. It should all come from you through either to Beth, probably, if Beth is sending them out. That everybody will get the information. They can send requests to you, but be very careful of what you communicate.
So, either way.
Go ahead, Vern.
No, I was going to say, so I mean, I have some of those same concerns. I wanted to bring them up just before we got too far in the process, because I was a little uncomfortable responding to any emails, not knowing the lay of the land. My intentions are probably going to be to set up a separate email address specific for any work that I do for the budget committee, just because I'm trying to keep everything straight, and that just seems like it'll be an easier thing that works for me. Coming here, I was wondering, should we maybe have Plaistow.com emails? Would that make it easier, perhaps, to disseminate information rather than relying on people to have personal ones? I don't know. Again, I'm just asking as the new person.
It's a very good question. It's an excellent question, and we have already started that process. So we basically have a generic email account for 5 boards right now. So for example, Bob will be getting one that will be budgetcom chair
Yeah.
at Plaistow.com. And so we've done that for planning, for zoning, for budget, and I'm trying to think of the other ones that there are, but it doesn't matter. That's what we started with just with the chair. There was a cost in creating these email accounts, and right now we just can't afford it.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
But ideally, absolutely, the much, much better way to do it is give everybody a Plaistow.com a site. And if we can afford to do that, then we should do that.
Yeah.
And that way, all of the emails go into the town server, and they're all there as
Right.
public.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Robert?
Yes,
I
Bob.
just wanted to mention one thing, and having been a chair of the Budget Committee in the past, there's an awful lot of information that the Budget Committee chair can share with the other members by email. And in no way should that be discouraged. But on the other hand, if we start a conversation about that email, that's where we're running the risk.
Right.
So I think what I'm saying is, don't be hesitant to communicate with us. We just have to be careful not to get involved in violating right to know and creating a meeting and
Right.
that kind of stuff.
I definitely like the idea of having it be sent out by Beth or whoever at that point, or however it goes out. But if I'm not mistaken, also on the, if it's set up like most email accounts, you can limit it so that people cannot reply to them. It goes out, but there is no reply all or whatever at that point, or there's a way to stop it from somebody hitting reply all, if I'm not mistaken, but
I'd have
either
to
way.
check that,
Yeah,
but they are office.com accounts.
Okay,
So if you're
okay.
familiar with office.com,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're running the current version of
Yeah.
the web-based of Outlook.
Okay.
And I find my desktop Outlook a lot more functional than the ones that we're using for Plaistow.com.
Okay.
But
All right.
just putting everybody's address in the BCC stops that from happening, because everybody gets a message, And in the body of the message, you can say, to the Budget Committee, so everybody knows this went out to the Budget Committee.
right.
But they're just getting their own copy.
All right, was there, yes, Pete?
A couple other things, if we're in
No,
the
go ahead.
business part of the meeting. I personally feel that we're not only looking at the budget for next year, we're looking at the budget for this year, too, as it goes along. And one of the pieces of information that was difficult forthcoming was every month getting a report. We very infrequently got it, and it stopped sometime, and we just didn't get it. So I would suggest that you, as the chair, request from the finance director that report that comes out every month, let's say by the second week of the month, that says, how is the town doing on the budget that was set up? So that we have some information and see how things are going.
Is this the actuals report,
And it-
Peter?
Yes.
In addition,
Yeah.
we never see anything on revenue. We don't know how we're doing with money coming in. I think that's part of the budget process to know that. And maybe something could be done to give us an idea of revenue so that we can see revenue versus spending. And the last thing, not a nice subject to bring up, was a couple of days ago, Greg, you sent out a very nasty email about my committee last year. You called it a dog and pony show. You cast aspersions at the chair. You said that she provided some untruths. I told you in my email that I was going to ask you a question tonight. And could you tell me what that diatribe of untruths that Maxine put out last year was?
Okay, so to begin with all due respect, Peter, we have had a very completely different perception of reality. You have had a very difficulty in convincing me to your perspective of reality.
Can you please talk louder?
Yep. You have had a lot of difficulty convincing me of your perception of reality, and I have had a very difficult time convincing you of my perception of reality. So I would absolutely enjoy, if you wish to schedule some time with me, I'll be happy to meet with you and discuss any of this. Not that I think that is going to will make much progress, but I'll be happy to answer any question that you have.
Well, I don't want to do the same.
May I
don't want
finish,
to make the
please?
same
May I
mistakes-
finish?
make the
May
same
I
mistakes
finish,
as we
please?
did.
May I finish, please? You asked me a
No, I would just
question.
like the question answered.
You asked me a
What were the
question, let me
untruths?
finish. So I'm not going to take the time with the Budget Committee to have a discussion about this. If you want to discuss it with me, I'd be more than happy to discuss it. Bob has sent out his perception of what happened, and I sent out my perception of what happened. So we have two different sides. You don't have to agree to them.
I would, as chairman, I'd like to keep, I'd like this year to start off first on a positive note. Okay, what happened in the past, and if you guys like to discuss it privately, the mudslinging, the whatever happens, the verbal beatdowns and stuff is not going to continue this year. It's, if from now on, if somebody is speaking, please let them finish speaking. Let's not keep interrupting. As you saw last year, we would ask, we asked the town manager, we'd ask somebody a question, but in the middle of the explanation, we would interrupt. So you never got the answer complete. Take the time, take a deep breath, write down what you're going to ask them afterwards if you have to, but let's let the person finish. Let's try to speak positively with each other. Let's just try to keep this on a positive note and not name call or whatever else, what's happened in the past. If you guys want to discuss this, discuss it on your own. I'm more than happy. If you want to exchange phone number, you want to chat, you want to have a cup of coffee, do whatever. But let us start on a positive note this year. We have a new group, all fresh faces. We have some veterans here and stuff. Let's try to move forward and let's make this process what it should be and keep to business at hand, which is let's discuss the budget. Let's get this under control and let's do it nicely to each other. Let's try to treat each other like we want to be treated when we're talking. Give the person that time, and let's not badmouth each other. Let's try to work together as a group. I think that was one of the things that in the past, things started getting ugly and heated, and we're public figures. We don't need the public to see that we're dysfunctional or that we can't get along with each other. Let's try to be adults with each other and talk positively and be nice. That's all I ask. Would you have something else, Peter?
Pardon me?
Did you have something else?
No, I don't.
Okay. But I agree. I agree with you. I will get in the process of getting, I've got something that I'd like to get into the works. We are not going to get a administrative assistant supplied from the town, but I am looking into another avenue in which way we can get the information and we'll just leave, so we will from here on, as the information comes out for the actual reports, I will make a request that we get that every time they come out, and I will look into the revenue report and find out what that is, when that's generated and what that is from there, and if that will help. Yes.
Well, I agree. I think Charlene does about the best minutes I've ever seen, and I think
She does a
it's
great job.
However, I think you're doing the committee a disservice by not demanding that we have an administrative assistant. When we had one, things went a lot smoother.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
Can I just ask, what does an administrative assistant do?
Administrative assistant, my understanding is they would be the ones that would get together, first of all, would get together our folders. They would, if we had something that we needed from department heads, or in this case, we wanted the actual reports, they would make sure that we got them. They were put in our folders, and everything was put together and ready for us at our meeting. They would have our agenda set up. They would have everything, they would basically organize everything that you get here would be done by the administrative assistant, yes.
So who does the agenda now?
Beth?
Beth is doing the job at this point.
So we do have an administrative assistant?
We do, well,
Yes.
technically, we do not. Beth has been gracious enough to help us out at this point, yes.
There's a lot of little details involved, and I was the first chairman without an administrative assistant. And it was amazing, all the little details. For example, just setting up this meeting, the agenda had to be posted, had to be set up. Fortunately, it's the same as it has been in past years. But all little details that getting notebooks audited, getting the tags audited. It's being done now, but it's doing sporadically. What we're missing is the continuity. A lot of the things we discussed tonight is because we don't have that administrative assistant to say, this is the way we've done it. This is the way we've done it. It's almost like we're starting fresh every year. And we just don't have that continuity that we had with an administrative assistant because she would keep us on track. She had a parking lot list. It was really an action list. And being a town employee, she knew all of the other department heads and she would get answers to questions. It saved Mark a lot of work. It saved Greg a lot of work because they didn't have to get involved in this stuff. It's all getting done now, it's just that it's not getting done, it's getting done sporadically from different people, and it just doesn't feel the same from a continuity point of view. That's all I can explain.
Was there anything else somebody had that would like to discuss under old business or new business? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second?
All right, then we'll adjourn this meeting. It's 8:17. Thank you.